All right, hello everyone. Thank you all for coming to this installment of Lunchalytics. Is there anyone here in the room that this is your first time attending Lunchalytics? Only a couple. Okay, there's a few. Awesome. So for those of you who have been here before, I am not Dan. I am Dana. I'm one of the analysts at Dark Horse Analytics, and I'm filling in for Dan today. A couple other things that we're doing a little bit different today is we're going to try again to stream the event. We've tried this once before and we had some audio issues, so hopefully anyone watching this can actually see and hear us right now. And then the other thing that's really cool is that today we've actually got a sponsor. So the City of St. Albert has generously purchased the lunch that many of you are enjoying. So I would like to invite Harold Pacheco up to say a few words. Where did he go? Oh, there you go.
That's okay. Hey everyone, how's it going today? I'm gonna do that thing that Dan does because he's not usually here. So how many people here are data producers? Can I get a show of hands? Oh, that's a bit less than usually what I see. How about data consumers? Use data for making decision making. Those are the same hands. Which one is it, guys? And also, how many people are here from the retail world? So this is directly relatable to you. That's great. We have a really good turnout today. You know it's going to be a good event when we are nearly exceeding the fire code regulations. Just kidding. I'm glad you all came out. We're really happy to sponsor this event. I'm Harold Pacheco, and I'm the marketing specialist at the City of St. Albert. So the City of St. Albert, we don't always have the capacity and the resources to go toe-to-toe, dollar for dollar against some of the bigger, sexier cities when it comes to attracting businesses, attracting residents, and attracting tourists. So that's when the importance of data comes in. So we need to have strong data, and even more importantly, strong data interpretations so that we can operate efficiently and make sure we have that competitive advantage. To that effect, we have several studies. We invest heavily in studies. We have a retail analysis, we have a hotel study, and an entertainment study. And thanks to these studies, we now have several big box brand name stores coming to our community. We have several big name hoteliers that are looking at developing in St. Albert. And the one that we're really proud of is we have a new cinema opening in our community. Any of you could still go to the theater? Or is everything all streaming? All right, it's gonna be a VIP cinema. So it's gonna be the second one in the region. So we're really proud to have that in our community. We also partner with academic institutions, including the University of Alberta. In fact, we've worked with Emily from the School of Retailing before, recently for our downtown retail strategy. She does great work, and we're really excited to hear her speak. Thank you, Emily. We've also worked with Dan's management science course. In fact, his group that was given to us, they found the variables that are integral for the commercial, residential, and industrial growth in St. Albert. So that's called our municipal growth model. It's a new tool that we are revealing to the public very soon here, and really excited because it's going to be a great tool for our future decision making. We also work with Grant McEwen and Nate, and we're looking at a future virtual reality project because we got a lot of new development in our downtown, a lot of vertical developments, 20+ story buildings. So we're going to kind of show to residents and investors what they could possibly look like. So really excited about that. We've also been recognized for some of our efforts recently. Western Investor Magazine has named St. Albert the top investment town in Alberta to look out for in 2017. We've also earlier this year been selected as a finalist for an IPAC award. So it's a national award for innovation in the public sector. So it really just goes to show the hard work that our team has been doing over the last few years, and it's nice to be recognized. And just before I go, I'd like to talk about our open data policy or open data program. We are working together with several municipalities, including the City of Edmonton on an open data portal. So we're just talking about having consistent data across the municipalities for a greater governance, greater transparency. So really excited about that. And if there's any questions you have about anything that we do, or you guys have any ideas for cool projects, please come see us after the event. I hope you enjoy your lunch. Junto's Bistro brought it. They're a St. Albert company, and they do catering as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to pass along to our first speaker today, Emily from University of Alberta School of Retailing. Please give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
Should I test this mic? It's good. I have to use both. I have a mic on, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Hi. Saw you yesterday. How you doing? So don't play it yet. Don't play it yet. Just enjoy our YouTube page that we just launched. Feel free to spend some time today. Take a look at our office tour video. We've had 8,300 views. We're very happy with that. Thanks to the amazing students that share it for us. The power of sharing data and content. So I'm here to talk only for a few minutes, about 15 minutes, about the importance of postal code data. I really don't know who's in the room, so I apologize, but who here knows or understands the importance of postal code data? Who gets excited about postal code data? Right? I mean, I get so excited about postal code data. It's probably one of the things I use the most. I used Excel to do it, and I'm going to make a little video in about 5 seconds last night showing a sample set of data that I have from an online grocery store or online delivery. It's one of the major companies, so I'm only focusing on one data set from one location. And, you know, I'll show that in a second, but I want to talk about, I'm going to use Southgate Center as an example, since that was one of the clients I worked with for a long time. And now we're working with another shopping mall here where the equally important information is needed to be gathered. So we are focusing on postal code collection. So whether it's the first 3 digits or the full 6 digits of your postal code. I know you all have been into a store where they ask you what your postal code is. 9 out of 10 people give it up without even thinking about it. The other person is probably somebody who works with data and understands the power of the information and doesn't want to give it to anybody, which is me. I'm always like, no, I know what you're doing. So it gives us the power of finding you and locating you on a map. So I'm going to show you. You can click play on the postal code line. See if this works. There's no sound. It's only short. So this gives you a shot. This is done in Excel. It's free. You all have it on your computers, I bet. And then it gives you kind of an area of influence. So this is Edmonton. So it shows you, you know, we've got some weird spots happening all on the outside. I kind of forget about those. Those are nobodies to me. And then it goes in a little bit further. I mean, maybe they'll grow to somebody. Then it goes a little bit further and shows you different areas of influence. So you can see Southeast Edmonton is a really big deal, and the core is a really big deal. So depending on where my business is located, it can be really useful. So how we look at it, and I'll leave it, you can leave it on the last one here. It's almost over. Don't you love how it moves? Like, I don't know, it's so exciting for me. Okay, you can pause it because it's going to go into the next, well, we could watch that too. So the important thing is, like, for example, if that's an online grocery business, I look at those color areas very importantly. So for online grocery, I'm going to recommend for really dark red spots, I'm going to recommend that you do referral marketing. So tell your neighbor about our service, you get 50% off your order. It's pretty basic. The yellow areas, I'm going to focus on digital marketing. So they likely know about us or have heard about us, but they need a call to action. They need something coming across. I know who they are because I can study where they're living. I can use other data to find out what their personalities are, how they're spending their money. And then the other greenish, lightish areas are areas that I can watch month over month to see if they're trending. So as the spots potentially get bigger, that's only 30 days. So if I start to overlap the data, 30 days, 30 days, 30 days, and I can see areas that might be trending, that's where I would invest in a mail out. So that's where I would say, okay, let's do 3,500 mail outs to this area that has been trending for the past 3 months. So this is not new information. IKEA does this, Simon's does this. Anybody who's collecting your information, Sephora does this. So Sephora is a good example where they're opening up a new location in South Edmonton Common. Never really been done before in a city like ours, where they're opening up a location so close to their Southgate location, but they're doing it because all you have to do is pull the postal codes, figure out how many of your purchasers live in a certain area, and what's the potential market share that you're going to lose from that. So what is the market share that you can gain, plus whatever is beyond South Edmonton Common, and then what are you potentially going to lose by, you know, your Southgate Center store, but, you know, you're always wanting to shave a little bit. This is how Starbucks does it, but they don't do it with postal codes, obviously, because they don't have your postal codes. So if you think about the power of it, with Southgate Center, we collected it for 2 years we collected information. We did $1,000 here. We did, win a $10,000 shopping spree with Crate and Barrel, win this. And people lined up at the kiosks to fill out these forms. Like, they lined up. I don't know if you were ever at Southgate when you saw one of these lines. You're like, what is going on? People are literally just entering their information. We didn't even care what your first or last name was. We wanted your email and your postal code. And people were like, okay, great. $10,000, this is fantastic. So what we did with that information is we built an entire 2-year marketing strategy. So that was back in 2008. Google Ads, things like that weren't as prominent as they are now, and digital marketing wasn't as prominent. So there was a lot of transit, a lot of billboards, but we were able to make sure that the money was spent very carefully, and so that we were returning investment on every dollar, making sure we were targeting the right customer. One of the things Southgate also did is they used to go out in the parking lot and write down your license plate number. I'm sorry. And they would be able to determine exactly where you were coming from and how far were you coming from. So even though they had postal code information, they could also see just how far people were traveling to come to Southgate, and then be able to market that far away as well. So it was really interesting how they used that information to be able to market to the right customer. Southgate is one of the top 5 malls in the country, one of the highest producers. I think they're still about $1,200 per square foot, which is unheard of for a independent community mall. It does help that it's only one level. People always ask about that. So when you look at malls like Londonderry Mall, for example, we will start to do that right away now, where we're collecting postal codes so we can figure out how to market. Now more than ever, you want your marketing dollars to be really well spent. Another thing that we use for postal codes is expansion. So HomeSense, has anybody ever been into a HomeSense, a Winners, a Marshalls, and then get your postal code? It's not because they care about what you're buying, it's because they want to know where do you live, because they want to have as much in the market as possible. So you might be like, well, they have a HomeSense right there. Why are they putting one there? Because there's enough market share to be able to support the business, and each business is willing to take a little bit of a loss to have a second producer. So that's what happens with the Sephoras of the world. That's how you get companies like the Rec Room here. So there's a lot of power in that information. What else can I tell you about that? The way to do it's like, I don't know if there's any business owners in the room, but for anybody who wants to know how to start doing this, I would just recommend that you start asking your customers if you can have their postal codes. So that you can, most of them are going to be willing because you want to serve them better, and you want to be able to ensure that they are getting the information from you as a business. You're going to always face no's, that's the way it goes, but it's more valuable than an email address. If you look at the conversion rate of opening newsletters, postal codes are much more valuable, because then you can use that information to determine if you can expand into a second location, if your location is where your customers are coming from, which most independent retailers in Edmonton, I would tell you, your primary customer is not coming from around your location. And that's the biggest challenge we have in Edmonton and surrounding areas, is that, if you're in the high street and you study, or if you were on 104th Street right here, and you study where all of your customers are coming from, and you actually find out they're all coming from the West End, or they're coming from the North Side. So if your business is in trouble and you're looking to relocate, are you going to choose to go into Manulife, or are you going to potentially look at, okay, well, what if I got a second location somewhere else, and then I was able to bank on that location to keep my 104th location? Because you always have to have a high producer somewhere else to have a downtown location, right? So Aritzia, every company on Fifth Avenue in New York is a loss leader. So Aritzia loses money there, Apple loses money there. Everybody loses money because your rent is off the roof, but you have all your other businesses inside the shopping mall so that you can manage to have that brand driving location. I think they're checking the time. I don't want to go over. 17 minutes? Come on, this is data. Can you do math? 12:03 plus, is it 12:18? Oh, good. 3 more minutes. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do at the School of Retailing. So we are a center at the University of Alberta. We are part of the Bachelor of Commerce program, and we have 18 students, including Sean, who's here. He's one of our senior consultants, and they do consulting for the industry. So whether it's an e-commerce analysis for London Drugs using postal codes, or whether it is a digital marketing strategy for Londonderry Mall, or if it is a traffic conversion analysis or real estate analysis, or we've done 9 research projects for the Corner Store project for the City of Edmonton. I know Joan will be very excited to hear that we're about to put out a best practice in historical corridors across Canada. So that's an applied research piece that we're excited to put out around what is trending and what is going on, and how can historical corridors and other real estate areas like this diversify or look at unique leasing strategies, unique retail mix strategies, that kind of stuff. And my history is I'm a consultant. I've been a consultant my whole life, and then I am now at the university, and I get really excited about this type of stuff. There's so much power in Excel alone for small business owners and big business owners. You don't have to have fancy programs to be able to determine if you're making the right choice when you're moving your business or growing your business, or how to market your business digitally. So don't waste all of your money on doing a digital advertising campaign from everybody in the city of Edmonton between the ages of 18 and 35, because half that money is wasted. So if you can start to target it a little bit more by asking for postal codes, wait till you have at least 300. This is only a sample of 300. So wait till you have at least a good sample where you might be able to start seeing trending areas. And I'm sorry for people who this conversation does not have anything to do with, if you don't own a business or anything like that. But it's, you just go in, you copy the postal codes, you click on create map, and then it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you have information that, if you need help or want us to help you do it, we're available to do that. And it's a really powerful tool. Postal codes are an amazing tool. There's a reason big business uses them. It's because it works. And if you ever need, to make good marketing decisions, I would recommend using postal codes. Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Just before Emily hops off, does anyone have any questions for her? Yes.
How would your marketing strategy change, or would it change for an area that had a high population of customers versus a high concentration or density of customers?
What would be the difference between high population and high density?
You might find that you have a lot of customers coming from downtown.
Yeah.
But lots of people live in downtown Edmonton, so
Yeah.
it's kind of natural. Like maybe you might find that in a suburb or something with a smaller population, you had 75 out of 100.
Yeah. You could start to overlap with population numbers, right? So the great thing about Edmonton data in most cities is that you can start to narrow in and look at the population of particular neighborhoods. Don't get me started on my biggest complaint about the city of Edmonton, and that our entire downtown is lumped into one population, what makes it really challenging for us to study and really challenging for us to grow this downtown. It needs to be segmented into smaller areas so that we can look at where things are growing and trending, and learn how to build business for Edmonton. I would also disagree that there's a high population of people in downtown Edmonton, so please buy a condo, and if you could do that right away, that'd be great. But I definitely, there's ways of doing that, but also it gets even deeper where you could, with online grocery, for example, you'd want to then start studying the size of each basket. So someone like me would say, great, this is where my clusters are. And then I would go to the core, and I would go to Southeast Edmonton, and I would start comparing basket sizes, and I would start comparing how many people in the core are ordering pre-made baskets, and how many people out in Southeast are doing that, and then start to find trends that way. So it gets really, really deep once you've determined where your hotspots are. Then the information is endless depending on what you have about your customer. Online grocery is a really interesting spot for us because it's fairly new and it's fairly unpredictable and a really scary business to be in. because it's unknown. So things like this are really important in the short term to make sure that we can help the grocery business to understand how to scale without having waste and things like that. But definitely you do start with the postal code layer, and then it breaks down into population numbers. Then you can break those into segments of who buys what. But in downtown Edmonton, you can't do any of that. So it sucks. Yeah. Oh, I always give my postal. Well, it depends on the company, right? IKEA, you can have it all day long. TJX, I've worked with TJX. You can't have my postal code. IKEA is a good company. They're making the world a good place, even though they use 1% of the lumber in the whole world. What's up? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes, so I would tell you that that sample set for me isn't great, because I would tell you that a lot of people are giving me their work postal code because the business is actually located in Southeast Edmonton. So the likelihood of it delivering to the downtown core is very unlikely. So it's much like people at Sephora, they give you their Hotmail that they had, like treycool99@hotmail.com. And then when they come in, they like never remember what their email is, you know? So it doesn't work. And they don't get the emails, then they get mad at you. It's like, well, don't give us your 16-year-old email address then, you know? Yeah, go ahead. What program? That's just Excel, Microsoft Excel. Yeah, you'd be surprised. You can have a lot of, like, it's like my Saturday night. Excel. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like my husband and I, we just bought a business. We just bought a UPS store, and that one of the first things that I do is I start to take that information and figure out how far is our reach, where are customers coming from, helping them to make sure that they know there's other locations. So there's so much information, and it's so easy, and that took about 5 minutes. And so it's pretty easy to just copy them into the program. And as long as you have Microsoft Excel, it's easier on a PC than it is on a Mac, which I have both, but I prefer to do it on a PC. Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like to bring up our next speaker. He is the Director of Data Science at Granify, Marcin.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I apologize for my voice. I've been pretty sick the last couple of days, but I should be able to talk for 10, 15 minutes, so that should be fine. First of all, how many of you have heard about Granify? Oh, that's pretty good. How many of you know what we are doing? Okay, people won't be bored for the first few minutes. So let's start. So Granify, we are Edmonton-based big data company, and we provide software as a service solution for e-commerce stores. Basically, our main objective is to identify shoppers who won't buy in real time and then convince them to buy before they leave the website. That's a pretty cool idea. And we got like $7 million investment in Series A last year from Peter Thiel. And we're hiring around 50 people currently. So we're growing pretty fast. And we're handling around 150 million requests, which is roughly 200 gigabytes of data per day. So a lot of data. What are the roles of data science at Granify? So engineering, these are more like backend developers who are responsible for implementing brain models, maintaining data flow, QAing data, making sure we have a code for distributed data processing. There is also analysis, where there is more customer-facing market insights, visualizations. And there is, of course, research, which kind of overlap with those two roles, and adding, like, building these models to implement and making product research. These are not strict borders between the roles. If engineer wants to visualize data, Sure, he can do that. And how it works, how Granify works. So we have a JavaScript snippet, which is installed on the e-commerce site that tracks shopper behavior. It tracks how many items they add into cart, what pages they are visiting. It tracks also when they are buying, and it sends the information to our server every second. And on the server side, we're making a real-time prediction if the shopper, how likely the shopper is going to convert. When we're predicting that shopper is having some concern, then we show him a message or some widget, some tool, but convince him to actually make a purchase. So we're addressing his concern. And our attribution model, we divide the traffic into two groups, which is one of them, usually smaller, is the baseline that we don't interact with. We just track what shoppers are doing there and track how many of them are buying. And at the same, on the other side, we have a Granify group where we actually interact with the shoppers. We can then measure performance like conversion rate, revenue per session in each of the group, and tell how much money we actually generated. Then we bill our customers based on this incremental revenue. We apply some small margin to the incremental revenue. But now, the really interesting question is how can we be sure that this is not like a statistical fluke? How can we be sure that this is actually the result that we generated and we're not just lucky? Well, and that brings us to the main topic of my presentation today, which is hypothesis testing. I guess most people here are familiar with that. Basically, you have a null hypothesis, but there is no difference between two groups. And then you have alternate hypothesis, but there is a difference. And you're calculating p-value, probability. You can say that's probability that data support null hypothesis. And if it's below some threshold, usually 5%, it means that the null hypothesis is rejected, so that supports your alternate hypothesis. But now, let's take a look at this experiment here. This is like the simulated experiment with 10,000 sessions per day, and you can see the the conversions are generated randomly. So each line is one experiment. And now what you can see here is that if you stop as soon as you get p-value below 5%, you're ending up with seeing 22% of runs being significant. If you wait till the end, like 20 days, you see that there is 5.33% significant. Now, really interesting thing, in this experiment, both groups actually have no difference in the conversion rate. So their results shouldn't be significant. So why they are? So as you can see here, Fisher, who was actually researching the statistical significance and those tests, told that a scientific path should be regarded as experimentally established only if repeating the experiment rarely fails to give this 0.05 level of significance. So, of course, what we have seen before is the results were not significant. The only problem with real life is that you cannot repeat the experiment so many times. It takes time. It takes like 20 days to run one trial. So time is money. You cannot do that. You have to set up experiment right. To do that, you can look at statistical power. Statistical power is informs you about type 2 error, which is what is the probability that you will not miss significant results. And assuming that you know effect size, let's say you say, oh, I think there will be like 5% improvement over what we have currently, you can tell how many samples you need to actually get some power. So you also have to decide on the power, let's say 80%. So you will be able to catch 80% of time if there is something significant. Also, you have to make sure to include like full cycles. If there is, for example, during a day, people shop at different frequency, there is different conversion rate during the day. Actually, people mostly buy when they are at work. I'm not sure why, but that's what we have seen in our data. And then make sure that you include full days. But we also see that people shop less on weekends. So at Granify, we like to look at the whole weeks. And let's take a look here. This is the number of samples. This still, again, simulated experiment, but the conversion rate in one group is 5% higher. As you can see, it starts with some random variance, and then it hits significant really fast. It hits it like a 20% improvement. But if you wait till you actually get some more power, you see that it regresses to mean, it regresses to where it actually is. Of course, you can also get significant results which are showing that it's actually performing badly. So it's really important that you wait and that you design your experiments. One more quote: to consult the statistician after an experiment is finished is often merely to ask him to conduct post-mortem examination. He can perhaps say what the experiment died of. It's important that you set the rules before you do experiment, not try to find some explanation in something you run and you didn't think what you wanted to find. Other things, we talk about it a bit, truth inflation. It's especially with low power, as you could see that there was like plus 20% improvement, which was significant. So you're likely to overestimate, especially in research. No one is reporting if things is not working or it's having negative, well, maybe negative impact, yes, but if it's not working, should I publish it? Probably not. So if it's wrongly defined experiment, if people find things are significant, they will report, yeah, we provided 20% improvement. When if they waited longer, they would see that it's actually plus 5%, and then some people may be disappointed in the results. It's still improvement. Multiple comparisons. If you have 100 variables, let's say you're testing what variable describing human is connected to some disease, and you're taking height, weight, eye color, 100 different variables. Well, 5 of them will be significant because that's your estimated false positive rate. So sometimes you have to make sure that you're making a right estimation, like right experiment to find the real significant variables, because by pure chance you can get 5. Base rate fallacy. That's a really interesting problem. Consider we have 100 samples, let's say drugs, but only 10% work to cure some disease. You don't know about these 10%, but let's assume that we know about it. It's 10%. Then let's say your tests have 80% power, which means you will actually get 8 of them when you're running your experiments. And then on top of that, you will get 5 false positives because of your p-value of 5%. What it means is that there is, of any of those significant, you have 62% chance that choosing one of them is actually a real deal. Even though you're using like pretty strict testing, 80% power, 5% significance. The problem is this base rate, which we often don't know, is only 10%. Imagine if it was only 1% or even less, which is the case for the cancer drugs. So if you're just testing like hundreds of drugs, you will find a lot of them, but mostly the chances that they are actually working are pretty low. Yes, so for some resources that you could use, a lot of this presentation was inspired by this book, Statistics Done Wrong, and this website, blog from David Robinson, Variance Explained. If you're not subscribing, you should start. It's really great. There is also a really good A/B test calculator that you can use online. I would like to thank my team at Granify that inspired me to do challenge and inspired me to do statistics right. And especially thanks to Josh that I stole a few slides from his data science meetup presentation, which he gave in May. And speaking of data science meetup, that's a similar event to this one, except it happens first Wednesday of the month, not the third one. And it's 6:30 p.m. after work. A few presentations, and then we heading to Mercer and having beers, which are included in your ticket, which is free as well. It's fun, informative, around 80 people, so I think we're exceeding fire regulations, which I will have to check with Warren about. Oh, he ran away, of course. And yeah, so if you're interested, you can check it out. We actually, if you found this talk interesting, oh, that's the Josh, by the way. If you found this talk interesting, we're hiring. We're hiring for roles in product research and customer analytics. And yes, please come speak to me after these presentations. Thank you.
We've got time for about 2 questions if anyone has anything they'd like to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, why wouldn't we use Bayesian approach? So as you can see, this link here points to Bayesian A/B testing. Bayesian A/B testing still is vulnerable to a lot of similar things. It's not like solution to everything. We are experimenting with it. We're looking into that, if that will produce more robust results. But there are a lot of things that I mentioned here will also be the case in the Bayesian approach.
So when go to your shopping online, like I mean, like mobile, you might have your program readjust. Sometimes with mobile, it's just like finger or there's no other mouse thing, right? You can follow the mouse.
Yes. So the question was if Granify is usable on mobile devices. So when we started 4 years ago, we were targeting only desktop because of this problem, multiple different devices, different screen sizes. But right now we are also working on mobile devices. We selecting devices and making sure everything works. We have really strong QA team that's checking every single widget in different scenarios to make sure that it works. It closes, for example, if the user wants to close it, or doesn't block the website and things like that. So yes, we are working on mobile devices now.
Thank you so much, Marcin. All right, so while our last speaker is getting set up here, we just wanted to do a call out. If anyone here in the room is interested in helping out at a future event, whether that is sponsoring our lunch and getting the chance to talk to the people in the room, if you're interested in speaking at one of our future events, or just helping out with A/B and setup and that kind of thing, please come and talk to us after. We'd love to have you involved. And as a plug for our next event, normally Lunchalytics is the 3rd Wednesday of the month, but because December has lots of holidays at the end, we're actually doing our next one a little bit early. So our next one is Wednesday, December the 14th, and the subject matter will be real estate. And we've got 3 awesome speakers lined up for that. So check it out on Meetup, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. All right, we Good to go. So our third and final speaker, he is the Director of Marketing at GoAuto. I'd like you all to give him a nice warm welcome to Russ.
Hello. I'd start just by asking how many people have heard of GoAuto. I'm guessing it'd be most everybody. So I am the sort of slightly misnamed Director of Marketing. My background is primarily in analytics and research. Most of my is in software. I have only a light touch of sort of automotive experience, and that's my my sort of last couple of years at GoAuto. My first year there, I was working on strictly analytics problems, so it could be anything from why are our employee attrition rates so high to which cars should we keep on which lots. But I started working on the marketing problems, and they said, "You're doing great at this. Why don't you just take over?" So my goal is to maximize the effectiveness of our marketing investment. GoAuto overall is a car dealership group of 43 car dealers. We own something from nearly every manufacturer, which means you could buy a Porsche, a Jaguar, a Land Rover from a GoAuto dealership. You can buy a Ford, a Chrysler, a Dodge. Edmonton-based, it's privately held. It is the second largest car dealership group in Canada. If we're ranking against the US groups, it ranked roughly 10th. So it is a fairly large, and especially as an Edmonton-based group, it's fairly rare. The advantage of operating as a car dealership group is that we get to centralize some functions. So relative to another car dealership, we would have sort of more resources to dedicate towards things like marketing, data analytics, HR, IT, etc. So I'm going to talk to you about two mini topics. One is augmenting your data augmenting your insights using third-party data, and two, measuring the effectiveness of your media spend. So we partner with a third party called Environix. Has anyone heard of Environix? I'll hand up. Sweet. Okay, so Environix is an aggregator of information, aggregator and reseller of information. So a lot of the stuff, so primarily the stuff that you'd be most familiar with, they take stuff from the census, so information about people and their house, and tie it to a postal code. The entire thing is kind of postal code based. So then they start to layer on other pieces of information. So they layer on information, some of it's based on surveys, some of it's based on actual first party collected stuff. So as an example, from an automotive perspective, they can sell you a data set that tells you in any given postal code exactly how many sort of make, model, year of a car are registered. So you can say, I'm interested in this area because there are more new cars than used cars, more imports than domestic, more of a particular brand, etc. They'll also sell you data sets relating to people's media habits, which include things like how often people use the internet, how much they spend, which radio stations they listen to, whether or not they read direct mail. So they pitched together this package. I've been an Environix user for 5 years now. I highly recommend their products and services. If you're interested in them, I'll happily introduce you to these folks. So the first project is really about how we kind of use and leverage some of this information to make choices and decisions. So how it works, they have a third-party tool called Envision. It's a web-based tool. You load your data list, and then you can sort of instantly know stuff about your customers or about an area. So you upload your list, choose your benchmark, and you run a report. So I'll show you some quick examples. So this is a set of customers we pulled from one of our car dealerships. Does anybody here work in the car business? I thought I'd ask. Does anybody here sell media? No? Perfect. I thought I'd just check just in case so I don't get myself into trouble by sharing information I shouldn't share. Most of this information is censored to a high degree, so you can't necessarily sort it out. But these are where the customers for our Porsche dealership live. So if you were to take all the folks who bought Porsches in the last 2 years, plot them on a map, this is where they live. Does anyone see a pattern? So if the dot's larger, you have more people. If the dot's smaller, you just have one. Anyone see a pattern? Yeah, exactly. So and they kind of track the river fairly well. So if you were to imagine, well, which are the fanciest neighborhoods in Edmonton, you'd probably draw yourself a map that looks a lot like this. So this takes like, I think going kind of end to end, start to finish, like pulling the list, loading the list, drawing the map will take you a minute and a half. You can also do things like plot it relative to the number of people who live in the area. So in this case, the darker shade represents the proportion of population. It does help you address issues exactly like you're mentioning. But I want to figure out if it's because this is a dense area or because I have a disproportionate proportion of the population. You can do visualizations like that relatively easily so that you can start to figure out, okay, this is a good spot for me to be marketing my products. It doesn't help you answer the hard question of, am I better off investing in an area where I'm winning, or am I better off investing in an area where I'm not yet winning? That's kind of a big strategy question you get to wrestle with all the time, but at least it gives you kind of a foothold as to where you are today. These numbers look like they are all tiny and like they've all been kind of wiped out. Awesome. So this is this is canned output from what the system looks like. I'll do a quick description of what you would be seeing if you could see any of the numbers. So this is a list of kind of household characteristics. So how many people are in the area, how old the household maintainer is, how many children they would have, the age of their household. This would be an income-related set of statistics. These are language stats, and I think these are based strictly on your house. So this is just default canned output. It shoots out immediately. There are 3 columns of information. What's the proportion of the sample? What's the proportion of the benchmark? And then just a comparison of the two. Are you over or under? So what it allows you to do fairly instantly at a glance is say, so for this group of people, maybe the blue things would show up and say these are folks who have disproportionately high numbers of children. Or these folks are, in this case, they have a disproportionately high income. So you can work with sort of the dummy data. You can also take it out and you can work with the actual raw data to start to build more comprehensive profiles. So you can do this with a customer list. You can do this with an area you're interested in. You can do this with sort of any particular data set. You're really just querying sort of large sets of information to help you get an edge as a marketer to try to figure out who am I really trying to sell stuff to. So this I won't tell you exactly who we loaded as this list, but you can have a guess at it. So this is a segment profile that we did up based on a particular group we were interested in. In this case, there are 2 bar charts in the sort of histogram. If the bars are orange, it means it's a disproportionately high number. If it's sort of lighter, it means it's disproportionately low. So these people are sort of disproportionately not in the sort of 25 to 45-year-old age category. They're more likely than average to be married, more likely than average to live in a 4-person household. They have above average income at $150,000 relative to the $104,000 we were including as the benchmark in this case. Disproportionately likely to be post-secondary educated, more likely than average to drive to work, more likely than average to English, less likely than average to be immigrant. So this was, these are some of the sort of default canned variables that come sort of straight out of this so that you can figure out what sort of tactics and choices can I make to better sell whatever it is I'm selling. Sort of another take on it, you can also learn all about what type of media they consume, which makes a huge difference if you're in marketing and you've got a fixed budget and you're trying to figure out how do I get the biggest bang for my buck. So at this group, which was the same as the one from the last slide, we noticed things like in terms of their consumption of news, it was heavy, radio was medium, television medium light. Internet use was medium, but their spend level was high, and sort of magazine or newspaper consumption was either heavy or medium, depending on the group. So this allows us to try to figure out, now that we've got or the offer for them, how are we going to distribute it? How do we want to try to communicate it to get folks? So the neat part about augmenting your data, you can sort of instantly know your market and your customers. You can build actionable plans to market to them based on real data. So you can, if you're using a third-party tool like this, you can kind of be in a customer group, an area, a segment, in kind of half an hour. End-to-end full analysis. It's not kind of months of data collection plus analysis. Kind of the advantage of making the sort of heavy investment to go in with a third party. So I'll talk to you about a specific campaign, and I'm super curious. How many of you guys heard about the GoAuto sort of payoff? It's a handful of people, maybe like 40%. So I'll explain the promotion that we ran very specifically. Every 2 weeks, we would do a draw. If you entered into the draw and we pulled your name, we would pay off your car loan. It didn't matter if you were a GoAuto customer or not. We're really using this as kind of a data collection exercise. So we would send people to a website. You'd show up, enter in your information about your current car situation. This is what I drive. This is what I owe. And then we'd usually contact you and ask you, do you happen to be in the market for a car? And if you said yes, great, we'd sort of start up a conversation. If you said no, we'd say, perfect, good luck with the contest. So contest was open to Alberta and BC residents for the sort of first round. We narrowed it into Alberta as we continued to learn more. So the neat part about this, and I don't know if you noticed, in this case, we used a specific keyword, which was text the keyword son to 7777777. So seems fairly easy. You text in and we'd automatically kick you to a website that said fill out the form, you enter in the contest. We also advertise in other places like New Ad. So New Ad is bathroom stall advertising. So this ad peeing has finally paid off. Exactly the same content, exactly the same offer, slightly different message, but definitely a different keyword. So the keyword in this case was text pay my loan to 7777777. We also advertised all over online, so you may have seen this Facebook ad. If you're in Edmonton and you use Facebook, the chances of you seeing this ad are exceptionally high. We called this ad the Candyman ad, which was more money for the things you love, like candy. So in total, we advertised across kind of 8 different media channel groups. Within each group, we'd advertise in a bunch of different variations. So we might use different radio ads. We might use different radio stations. I think we tested 60 different variations of Facebook ads. I don't know if we did more than 20 different Google display ads, but yeah, so online we'd tried search display retargeting. We tried YouTube pre-roll ads. With Facebook, we tried sponsored ads, boosted posts, cinemagraphs, inline forums. We obviously posted it on our own Facebook page, etc. Sort of on third-party online networks, so we partner with Auto Trader, Kijiji. Jumpstart Automotive is a sort of closed buying network. You can buy ads with folks like Canadian Black Book or MSN Autos. And then we used more traditional channels to test them out. So we used billboards, both the 10x20 statics and the 10x20 digital boards. So these would be the regular size billboards that you see. We didn't try this out on the super boards, the 10x40s. I'm glad we didn't. We tried Cineplex pre-roll. Cineplex, if you show up at the movie theater more than sort of 10 minutes before the movie starts, you'll see a handful of advertisements. So we tested something there. There was like a 30-second blurb. Hey, here's the contest, text, blah, 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 to be entered. We tried every radio station in town. We advertised on the back page of the Sun every Monday. We've been doing that since likely around the same time I was born. If you give up your spot on the back page of the Sun, you'll never get it back. So we hold it despite the fact that we're more or less out newsprint advertising. And we definitely experiment with the stuff in new ads. So the neat part about this was, but based on the fact that we're doing kind of direct response advertising, and we're not, the hard part about advertising and trying to sell cars and measuring how many cars you sell is that dealerships don't sell a lot of cars. But we do get a lot of contest entries for stuff like this. So the cool part is, allows us to measure stuff based on a direct response campaign so that we can start to see exactly what's the relationship between what I spend and what response I see. And then we can take these contest-related learnings and apply them again for other types of automotive campaigns. So in this case I was counting the number of text leads that we were getting based on which keywords they pumped in, sort of grouped within channels. So there were 4 channels on the previous page where we tried texting. And you can see there's a handful of patterns. So the lightly gray shaded areas are weekends. So I'll point out a couple of goofy things that just for those folks who really like information. The yellow in this case is the movie theaters. So you see like right before and during the weekends, the little tiny yellow bar starts to get a bit thicker when people are actually going to movies. During the week, movies are obviously not as popular. You'd also see, because we were only running the newspaper stuff, though the line is fairly thin, the newspaper stuff shows up immediately on a Monday and it trails off for a couple of days. So we use this information to try to help us understand exactly when our campaigns are working. We also did a handful of things like we turned off all of the advertising on a couple of days just to see exactly what would happen, how much carryover we'd see. We'd also do it to sort of relieve the folks in the call center who are super busy, constantly responding to text messages. We hire very young people who have very nimble fingers. This is the trick to marketing cars. Hire young people with nimble fingers. Yeah, so we noticed a handful of things. One I'd say is if you're in a position where you're buying advertising, they will very regularly with a TV station or a radio station how many times someone needs to hear a message before they respond. Based on this information and this type of campaign, we'd say that is definitely some sort of a falsehood. When we would launch a campaign, we'd see the biggest response absolutely immediately, the day we launched it, if not on the best day of the week for that particular channel. And then it would sort of gradually decrease after that. So it changed how we use media based strictly on results for the contest. It also allowed us to sort of rack and stack to rank each of our channels grouped together. Now I have sort of heavily censored this information so that it is, there is no actual cost data, nor can you see which of the 8 channels are in which of the 8 spots. But I will point out there are a handful of very important relationships and conclusions that you draw from this. One, there are a couple of channels where we were paying 75 and 100 times more for a contact than we were in the cheaper channels. So really helped us to evaluate, no matter what kind of a great deal we thought we were getting on the media, or no matter how well tied we've been to it in the past. This helps us to challenge the assumption, like, does this actually work to get someone to respond to our particular campaign? It also helped us to sort of promote and evaluate which variations of the campaigns we liked or which particular radio stations. So this type of analysis allows us to sort of refine exactly what it is that we're doing going forward. So, and it's not something we have to do post hoc after you run the campaign. If you start your campaign on day 1, you're doing this analysis on day 2. And then sort of running and optimizing throughout. And sort of the layer past that, sorry, you can definitely also, so this is a cost per contact basis, really. Basis to see, well, how many cars do they actually sell to people who texted in, who originally started via radio station 1 or via a billboard. The problem is that the numbers you're using are so small you can't be really confident. You have no you have no real confidence that that you've got enough data. You can sort of do anything with any meaningful statistical significance. It's all kind of random variation past that. So measuring media effectiveness, this was the set of steps we go to figure out what works, optimize, repeat. So we've used this to launch campaigns like this in other markets. We're sort of continuing to use this to figure out how much we can save and how much we can improve the sort of effectiveness of every dollar we spend. So that was all I was hoping to chat with everybody about. Does anyone have any questions?
So is there a disconnect somewhat between the type of promotion and the media? Like you're running something where you
totally.
have captive audience interaction and text.
Yeah.
How does that affect? Like maybe those billboards, I'm just making this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe the billboard isn't working because of the text advertising.
Absolutely.
Versus you have somebody sitting and movie people with their phone.
No, and that's a perfect example. I think the billboards for us, we did a handful of tests with them very specifically. So we'd sort of flip billboards on and off. We'd also check text for interaction effects between when we had them off relative to the other channels, just to try to give them a really fair shake. And the conclusion that we'd make for that is that they're not really great for driving direct response. If the billboards were underperforming, which they were. It was not a terrible surprise, and it's actually kind of nice for us at the end, because it's not really conscionable as a marketer to say I'm going to start putting messages on billboards that tell people to text, because you assume that when someone sees a billboard, they're probably driving. So that feels a little bit unsafe. But yeah, I don't think we're in the. We would take the conclusion so strongly to say that let's say billboards finished at the bottom of the list for argument's sake. We wouldn't use this to say we'll never use billboards. We'd use it to say we won't use billboards for direct response campaigns. But other questions? Yeah.
What did your analysis of the types of words you were asking people to text tell you about your demographics? Did you get any insights out of that?
So most of our demographic stuff that we would do would be based on, if we actually got somebody to talk to them, then we've got all kinds of really great data. But most of the time, we just get them to if we get them to submit a text, we text back. They go through the form, take the list, load it into Environics, and then immediately say older, younger, high income, low. We sort of truncate elderly population. We don't have nearly as many kind of older texters texting in. We'd have variation by channel, so the folks who are texting in from the movie theaters were disproportionately young by a wide stretch. You'd get neat variation by radio station, so you could actually sort out the demographics of the radio station listenership based on who is texting in from which station for which keyword. There's tons of neat stuff in there. Yeah.
How much did you save by offering that price versus going on the company to measure that?
What do you mean?
You said you have up to $30,000 that you would pay, right? But
Yeah.
now you're getting all this valuable info.
Oh yeah, that's a really neat question. So I think last year, based on kind of the optimization style analysis, we probably saved about $4 million in media spend, give or take, plus or minus, some variation of that. So and that goes for us either back into the marketing channels that we like better. So that's then not just a pure cost savings. It means that every dollar we're investing is actually more effective than it was a year ago when we couldn't do this kind of thing. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you increase your content to 35,000 now, right?
Oh, right on. Yeah, exactly.
Is that
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, we've experimented now with a handful of different variations where we have modified the size of the prize to see if that has any sort of an impact, modified the frequency of the draw to see if that has an impact. I don't know if you guys had been familiar with, last year we ran a was called the Car a Day giveaway. It was a totally different variation on this. It was everybody who bought a car in the month-long period from October 15th to November 15th last year got put into a hat. If you bought your car on November 1st, you and everyone else who bought their car on November 1st got put into the pool, your name was drawn, you got your car for free. So in relative terms, our measurement for whether or not that's successful is how much competitive lift we get across in particular markets. The impact of running this contest, which costs us, we generated this contest, so this particular campaign is probably the most successful automotive campaign that we know about. Not even that it's not just the most successful one we've run, it's the most successful one we've ever talked to anybody else in automotive about. That campaign cost us more to run and yielded a much smaller result. We'll definitely keep working on ideas like this variation exactly to figure out what works. Yeah.
I noticed in your segment that you didn't have on-site web marketing, like on-site, sort of like your own website.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's typically due to the fact that a lot of sales don't happen online. Is that why traditionally, or?
Well, we include them in the group, but they don't end up, because they don't cost us any money. We didn't include them on the slide. They do represent a fairly big chunk of where the people eventually find us. So those folks end up in kind of a semi-attributed pool. If they clicked on a paid ad and got to the website and blah, 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 then we can trace them all the way through. If they just happened upon, if they heard the radio spot, went to Google, searched for GoAuto, and then entered the contest straight off the site, we wouldn't have included them. So it does represent a kind of meaningful chunk of the analysis that ends up being sort of parked away in an assumption that we can't totally unlock. But yeah, it's a good kind of call out as to stuff that doesn't necessarily show up on the slides, but does show up in real life.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So in closing, a huge thank you to Russ, Emily, and Marcin for talking about the work that they're doing, to Reggie for helping out with our audio, Harold and the City of St. Albert for giving us delicious food, and Startup for providing us a space for this event. So thank all of you very much. Next event is December 14th. Hope to see you out. If you want to get involved with that one or a future event, come and chat with us before you head out. Thank you all for coming.